Vladimir Putin has been ruling Russia since 1999.
1999, man. Holy sh**.
In that time, he shaped the country into an authoritarian and militaristic society. He successfully invaded two of Russia's neighbors and strengthened ties with Syria and Iran. He's intent on pushing back against the Western world
Nice editing,
order,
man. Really good.
and it appears to be working.
Vladimir Putin, 17 years in the most powerful...
Can't deny Vladimir Putin is one of the most influential people of our generation, right? He
To
will be
understand
talked
how
about in
one
history
man
books
could have
for a long,
such
long
a
time.
powerful influence on this
Remember you in
country,
99? I was playing Pokemon Blue, motherfucker. I was a little kid.
to go
playing
back
Game
to
Boy
the
Color.
chaos and corruption that gripped Russia after the fall of the Soviet Union. When the Berlin Wall fell, a 40-year-old Putin was working as an undercover spy in East Germany for the
40?
Soviet security agency
30.
KGB. The Soviet Union dissolved into 15 new countries, including the new Russian Federation. In Putin's eyes, Russia had just lost 2 million square miles of territory. He later called this a major geopolitical disaster of the century, lamenting that tens of millions of his co-patriots found himself outside Russian territory. The new government had to sell off nearly 45,000 public businesses, like energy,
Wow.
mining, and communication companies that had been run by the communist
Looks like communism doesn't work so
regime. It was
often, my dear
chaos.
Antifa.
The Russian economy was in a free fall, and all of these companies ended up in the hands of a few extremely wealthy men, known today as Russia's
Oh, that's how
oligarchs.
oligarchy was made. Ah. I always knew from movies and stuff when the wall fell, right? Russia was like cheap. You could buy anything. I remember when the wall fell, the West Germans, this is something I know a lot about because I live here. The West Germans, they came to like Leipzig where I live and they bought all the houses. They bought all of them. And they knew in like 10, 20 years, they're gonna get 5 times the value back, man.
At the same time, the new Russian state was having a hard time establishing itself. Russia's first president, Boris Yeltsin, was
Yeah.
wildly unpopular for cooperating with the West. And to make matters worse,
Motherfucker.
he was an alcoholic, and many Russians
A
thought
Russian
he was an
alcoholic?
embarrassment. In order to stay in power, he leaned on the support of these oligarchs, surrendering an immense amount of political power to them. This graph shows how inequality actually worsened after the fall of the Soviet Union. This is where Vladimir Putin enters politics. He leaves the KGB in 1991 and becomes the deputy mayor of St. Petersburg. Putin uses his position to give special treatment to friends and allies in the private sector. He helps them structure monopolies and regulates...
It's literal mafia shit. But most governments are mafia. I don't want to shit on him there. Germany does that too. They're all fucking
their
mafia.
competitors, quickly becoming a favorite among the oligarchs.
Used city funds as loans to friends. Mamma mia.
Before long,
But again,
he's
that happens
assembled a
everywhere,
support
right?
network of oligarchs, crime bosses, and security officials, mostly fellow former
like a Martin
KGB
Scorsese
officers
movie.
like he was. With their help, he
A true
rapidly ascends
patriot.
to the upper echelons of the new Russian state. In 1999, President Boris Yeltsin appoints Putin, still relatively unknown in national politics, to be the prime minister. A fierce nationalist, Putin feared Yeltsin was letting the US dominate Russia and that NATO, the alliance that worked for decades to contain Soviet influence, would expand into the new liberated countries and surround Russia. Putin's goal then became to build a strong Russian state, one that would be both stable at home and capable of exercising more influence over its neighbors. And he quickly got his chance. During the post-Soviet chaos, there was escalating violence in Chechnya, a region that had informally seceded from
TOS,
Russia.
man. See you guys in a week. Thank you, Damien.
Chechen warlords and terrorists were pushing into Russian territory and attacking.
Yeah, Chechens, man. They were taken by an oppressor and now they fight. They took your country and now you fight for him, man. Mamma mia, man. That's like Hitler taking Israel and the Jews fight for the SS, bro.
the
Like,
border.
mamma mia.
In August 1999,
What a
a
bitch
series of
Kadyrov
deadly
is.
bombings killed more than 300 people in several Russian cities, including Moscow.
At this point, NATO should have already fucking gone in, bro. Dude, that's where I used to live, man. I lived in a... My grandma lived right on top. I remember. Not
Putin,
this
the
one,
new
though.
prime minister, immediately blames Chechen separatists for the attacks.
A lot of
He
Chechens fight with
regularly
Ukraine,
appears
bro.
on
That's
Russian
real fucking
television,
Chechens.
claiming he will avenge
Chechens.
Russia.
The
The population
you know what I
quickly
mean.
rallies around him.
Look how he looks. Right there is this rumor that a lot of Putins nowadays are actually they're doubles, right? He has a lot of body doubles.
Putin's approval ratings jumped from 2% before the bombings to
He also used a lot of Botox, right? That's pretty much confirmed. The guy is putting a lot of Botox in his face.
45% after the bombings.
Oh, the more he bombs people, the more people love him.
Journalists later uncovered evidence that suggests Russian security services could have been complicit in the Moscow bombings, perhaps knowing they would spark support for a strong man like Putin. But a closed state investigation quickly
Telling you, this is
quashed any
Nazi
dissenting
Germany shit, bro.
theories. So Russia launches a popular and devastating war in Chechnya. The capital city of Grozny was leveled by Russian bombing. In May, during the bloody campaign in Chechnya, Putin wins the presidential election.
He killed
begins to
16
shape the Russian
Czechoslovakians?
state to his vision. Patronage and corruption remain some of his key tools.
They attacked
but he
our
quickly
radio
suppresses
station.
the oligarchs under his rule. Those that support Putin are
Putin
rewarded.
was a KGB employee in Dresden during the Soviet era. There are also rumors that his daughter still lives here. That's why I feel pretty safe as a
Yeah, he
student
speaks
at
good German,
TUD
right?
Pog.
He speaks good German.
Those that don't are eliminated.
He was an interior
Once
decorator.
Russia's richest man, imprisoned Kremlin critic and former oil magnate Mikhail Khodorkovsky
Oh, don't talk shit about the
was
Kremlin, bro.
sentenced
You
to
dumb?
14 years in jail. This on a new conviction of embezzling oil.
This is effectively
Bro,
a
don't
vendetta,
talk shit
from,
about the Kremlin,
Vladimir
bro.
Putin, for Khodorkovsky getting involved in opposition politics.
With the oligarchy tamed,
And what did the Muslim countries do when these 80,000 Muslim Chechens died? Nothing. Hey, man. Hey, you said that. Hey, you said that. Yeah, it's like every time Muslims get fucked up, like the Uyghurs in China, everybody's very quiet, man. But the Israel-Palestine shit, everybody's on the streets. I don't know. I have no opinion.
Putin was now free to
that?
move his vision outside of Russia's borders. At the time, relations with the U.S. were fairly good. Putin even vacationed at George W. Bush's summer home.
I looked the man in the
Good
eye.
job, George Bush.
I found it to be very straightforward and trustworthy.
But things were
This shit ages so well.
about to change. In August 2008, Russia invades Georgia, a former Soviet republic. It's a display of aggression and strength on behalf of
Now
pro-Russian
watch this
separatists
drive.
there. Russia quickly annexes two small parts of Georgia, drawing
I didn't
condemnation
notice.
from all over the world. Interestingly, though, Putin was not president during the invasion. See, the Russian constitution says a president can only serve 2 consecutive terms, but sets no limit on the total number of terms one can serve. So Putin took the prime minister role again, when his hand-picked successor, Dmitry
Yeah, he was a puppet of Putin,
Medvedev,
right?
served as
He
president.
still is. That's the guy who always says, I'm gonna nuke the world, right?
When Obama's elected U.S. president in 2008, he attempts to reset relations with Russia, and they make some progress, most notably to limit both countries' nuclear arsenals. But Putin remains paranoid about U.S. intentions and remains opposed to these new relations. He's particularly bothered by U.S. interventions in the Middle East, especially in Libya in 2011. He publicly criticizes Medvedev for not vetoing the action in the UN Security Council. Putin announces his candidacy for president and wins the 2012 election by a preposterous margin.
Injustice, says Dmitry. This outrage can't continue. I'm here to say no to Putin.
Putin starts his third term once again amid chaos.
That's when you know something goes wrong, when they fuck with the constitution, man. That's when you know you should probably get your ass to the UK, man.
He
That's when
doubles
you
down
leave.
on his authoritarian governance style at home and his militaristic strategy abroad. But in both cases, he showcases a mastery of information. Since he first took office in 2000, Putin has kept a tight leash on Russian television. Essentially, all news outlets are state-owned propaganda machines. His regime decides which stories air and how, always depicting him as the strong Russian leader. In 2012, he cracked down on human rights and civil liberties, making clear there was no room for dissent in his Russia. Using state television, for example, he administered a blistering campaign against a feminist and gay rights music group, Pussy Riot.
The latest and the loudest such performance was the so-called punk prayer at the Christ the Savior Cathedral, where they were yelling things which were rather profane to be yelled in church. Of course, 3 members of punk group Pussy Riot were convicted and sentenced to 2 years in prison.
Only 2
Putin has
years,
also
though.
bolstered his aggressive foreign strategy. He's used traditional military methods, like sending weapons and fighter planes to help dictator Bashar al-Assad fight a bloody civil war in Syria. But Putin's regime has also developed and fostered the most effective
Makes
cyber
one of
army
Putin
in
ever
the
watches
world,
videos like this. He
and
probably
he's
does.
used it to wreak havoc in the West. These hackers have stolen classified U.S. information.
Yeah, the
hacked
hacking, that's where
politicians'
Russia's really
email
strong.
accounts,
The fucking
even shut down
internet
Georgia's
warfare, man.
internet while Russia
I genuinely believe a lot of people in Germany that vote for AfD are a result of Russian-introduced AfD propaganda, man.
troops
Which is
invaded.
even proven at some
And of
point.
course, they tried to sabotage Hillary Clinton's presidential campaign.
You have all these retards on Facebook, right? And they read the Russian troll stuff. These fucking refugees are taking our jobs, man.
2016.
The Russians are
hackers
very
have
good
also
at
launched
destabilizing
LM
us
glad
with
Putin
internet.
is-
propaganda campaigns in support of right-wing candidates in Europe. With this, Putin hopes to exploit and deepen the political divide in Western democracies. In 2014, the Putin vision
That's what they're doing
culminated
very
in the
good.
targeting of Ukraine, another former Soviet country. Ukraine's president was opening up to the West, and Putin feared he would join NATO. So Russian hackers launched a propaganda campaign against him, stoking protests in the pro-Russia eastern part of the country. He then sent in disguised Russian troops, and before long, violence erupts. In goes the Russian military, and in early 2014, Putin annexes Crimea. He continues to support the fighting in Ukraine, and as of 2017, over 9,000 people have died. The world
Oh man, they don't know yet what's gonna happen. Oh, they don't know yet what's gonna happen, bro.
erupts in protests, but Putin doesn't give in. See, his aggressive foreign policy successfully weakens his neighbors while also rallying Russians around him. But he has done all of this at the expense of his own people.
Don't forget who is boss on our planet.
His invasions have prompted harsh sanctions from the West, barring Russian businesses from trading in Western markets. Russian currency has plummeted in value, and the energy industry that Russia relies on is collapsing. It's hard to imagine Russia can continue under these circumstances. But the election of Donald Trump brings new hope for the Putin vision. Trump's rhetoric has been notably soft on Russia. He could lift sanctions and weaken NATO, potentially freeing up space for Putin's Russia to become a dominant power once again.
What are you still doing here, mate? Jeez! Well, if you want to see more, click these videos. Have fun. Looking good, boy.